Today I speak with Elke, a certified pregnancy and postnatal fitness coach dedicated to guiding women through their own movement and fitness goals. In this episode, we cover the topics when to rest and when to move, pelvic floor exercises, and how to ease back into an exercise routine. Elke is also a mother of two, and at the time of recording this conversation is well and truly in the thick of her postpartum second time around, with her baby at the tender age of 6 weeks. Forearmed with the knowledge of what she could have improved in her first postpartum, Elke tells of her non-negotiables this time around, some of which are breastfeeding support right from the start and continued support until feeling confident, thoughtfully planned out family support, doula support, which she describes as the best investment ever, and a food delivery service. I know you will gain a lot of practical suggestions and guidance from this conversation. Enjoy the episode. Welcome, Elke. So, thanks for being here. I'd love to know how you came into motherhood and who have you got in your little brood?
Hello. Well, first, thank you so much for inviting me. It's really special. So I'm a mom of two, and I'm married to my husband, Philip. And I had my first son 2022, and I recently gave birth. So my second son is just 6 weeks old. So it's all, right into the postpartum stage, and it's all pretty new. And it's exciting, it's challenging, it's, everything at once.
Yeah, beautiful. You really are an authority in this area, being right smack bang in the middle of
Yeah.
it. So tell us about your first postpartum experience. How was that?
So I would say now going through it the second time, if I look back, I would describe it very different, with more challenges than what I currently have. So for me, breastfeeding first time around was really hard, like really, really hard. It took me about 5 weeks to get it to work. Like I got to a stage where I was like, I'm going to try for another week. If it's not working, I just have to switch. Um, and it was so hard because I was in so much pain, and I really have to say I was so surprised by it. I didn't think that breastfeeding can be such a challenge, that it's so hard, that it is a skill that both need to learn, like you and your baby. And then, that was just the hardest thing for the first 5 weeks. And now looking back, because I'm going through it with my other son now, and breastfeeding is working, I can see breastfeeding makes such a change, or actually feeding makes such a change. If your baby feeds well, they are just so much happier, and they sleep better, and they are so much more content. And the other thing why it was a little bit more challenging was we also had to move. So around 4 weeks, we had to move. We moved from Sydney to the Gold Coast. And I think even though my husband looked after the whole move, it was really intense because there was all the time there was something we had to work on.
Mm.
And for me, like yes, I had to look after the baby and make sure the breastfeeding was working, but then there was also the other thing on my mind, like, have we done this? Have we emptied this? Do we have all the boxes? How are we going to do the drive? Like, is he going to cry? Is he going to be okay? Like, is he gaining weight? Where do I see the next doctor? So there was a lot going on. And it was like, I would say still when I was going through it, I didn't find it as hard as when I look back now, where I can see, oh, actually, it can be so much easier. It can be like really good, and you can actually enjoy it. But looking back, I find it was a challenge.
Yeah, and I think it's a challenge for many mothers, isn't it? It's kind of one of those things that is just the message is that it's just so natural and
Yeah,
easy,
yeah,
and when it isn't, and let's be honest, it isn't for a lot of mothers. There's usually some sort of issue, whether it's nipple pain or attachment or whatever. It can be something that we take on as our responsibility, and
yeah,
as if that's a way that we're letting our baby down and even
yes.
ourselves down. So it's so complex, breastfeeding. There's so many layers to it. So yeah, thank you for sharing and making that very honest, recount of that experience. How did things happen differently for the second one? So given your experience, what
Yeah,
did you then implement to make it a
yeah.
better one?
So what number one, what I really realized is that breastfeeding should not hurt. Yes, there is some sort of different sensation in the beginning because your nipples need to get used to it, but it shouldn't hurt. And I remember with my first one, exactly what you said is I thought that's the way how it is. I've never done it. So yes, maybe it is painful and I just need to get through it. And it
Mm,
was pretty much until I think the second or third week where my husband saw me latching and I was like, closing my eyes and curling my toes. And he was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, that's just how I feel." And he's
mm,
like, "I don't think it should be this way." So going into second time around, I said from the beginning on, even though I have done it, and even though in the end I had a really great breastfeeding journey, I will get all the help that I need. And that was what I did. So when I was at the hospital, I think after day 2, I was like, oh, actually, I'm feeling this kind of pain again. And I could see my nipple. They had a little bit of trauma. I called the midwife and I'm like, I need to get on top of that. I just don't want to end up in the same way that I had it with my first one. I know how painful it can be. I just tell me what else I can try. And then pretty much what we agreed on, every time I latched, I called a midwife. And I didn't feel embarrassed about it. I didn't think about it. I just called her and I said, please help me. I just want to make sure I'm doing it right. I still don't really know if I'm doing it right. It doesn't feel right. So please help me. And we continued to do that for 4 days. And yes, it was my second journey. And yes, I should know it, but actually, no, you don't.
mm.
Every breastfeeding is like every breastfeeding journey is different. Your baby latches differently. And the other thing that you shouldn't forget is when I stopped breastfeeding with my first one, he was a toddler. A toddler latches very differently than a newborn. And I didn't think about that, but the midwife said it's a very different experience again. So that was number one. Breastfeeding was on the top of my mind. I was like, no, I'm getting all the help from the hospital. And even if I would need a lactation consultant going on, I will invest in that. And luckily, I would say after 1 week, it really started to work. My nipples had healed. And since then, we've got a great breastfeeding journey and it makes all the difference. And the second thing is support. This time around, I really asked for support right from the beginning. So second time around, we actually had our mother-in-law coming and stay with us for 4 weeks, which was amazing. She helped us so much in the household that I just said, I'm going to stay in bed if I have to. I'm going to look after my baby. I make sure that I can heal. I make sure that breastfeeding works and I don't need to do anything else. Like as I already had a toddler, she was playing with him. She helped us in the household and that worked beautifully. And then the thing that I did in the same way was having a doula. So first time around I had a doula, second time around I had a doula, and I would do it ever again. For me, it's the best investment ever. It's a doula has just like this role that you wouldn't think you would need because everyone is like, well, you are a mother or you are a woman, you know how to give birth, your body knows how to give birth, but it's such a unique experience where if you have someone who just looks after you, it's just the best thing. And the doula is there during pregnancy, at birth, and also postpartum wise. So there was always someone here for me who was able to listen to me, to talk to me if I had any fears, any worries. And for me, it was just the best experience. So yeah, the two things that actually are different is breastfeeding and having the support and really and also saying yes to a lot of offers. Like I've got some mom friends here, and everyone offered to bring us food. And first time around, for 100% sure, I would have said no. I'm like, I can't accept that.
Mm.
But second time around, I was like, yeah, sure, if you want to, that would be amazing. And it was amazing. It was the best thing to get a freshly cooked warm meal at the end of the day. You don't have to worry about it. You just sit down with your family and can have a nice dinner.
Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, you've raised so many like important points and key elements to what makes a more peaceful postpartum.
Yeah.
But I really like that you've raised that just because you were a second time mum doesn't mean you knew it all
Yeah.
and you had it all covered. And I think that's the expectation from this a lot of people is that, well, you know what you're doing, you've done it all before.
Mm.
But it is a relationship, isn't it, between mother and child? And
Yeah.
each child is a human being, so they're all going to be a little bit different. And it's really about getting to know a brand new human being all over again. So, yeah, well done for not only asking for help, but accepting it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes a huge difference, and it makes life so much easier. So to everyone else out there listening to it, just say yes to it. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel guilty about it. I actually found people are honored if they can help you, because
Mm.
it's such a special time. You've got a little baby, and they if they offer you to help, just say yes. And if no one asks, then you just ask them. If someone asks you, like, what presents do you want, just ask them. You know what? The best thing would be if you can either do grocery shopping or if you can bring me a meal.
Yeah, totally. People want to help, they just
Yeah,
don't know how,
yeah,
and also they're wary of, invading your privacy or
yeah,
whatever. So, but as soon as you give them a task, they're more than happy to do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. All right. So, yeah, I really wish that mothers would put this thought and planning into the first time around. And sadly, it is often second time mums as a postpartum
Mhm.
doula that I hear from. So, what do you think we could do differently? How could we educate a little differently um, before having a baby? Because when we've got that baby and we're in that newborn phase and we're coming out of birth, which may have been traumatic just by
Yeah,
the nature of the experience, we might have wounds, sore tummy, sore
yeah,
bottom, whatever. It's very hard to invite help in for
yes,
ourselves then.
yeah.
So, what would you say to that in the preparing?
I would say the most important thing or point for us women is to talk about it. Just make other becoming moms aware of it. And it's not about frightening someone, it's just really sharing what might happen. And I always feel, if we talk about it, if you talk from mom to mom, or from pregnant woman to pregnant woman, it's really coming from a place of help. And I, as I said, I've got some mom friends here, and they all just had the first baby, while I'm the only one who had the second baby. And there were so many things that I pointed out just by talking to them, sharing their experience, that they actually took on their journey, and now they're coming back and they're saying, "Oh, thank you for mentioning that. It was in relation to birth. It was in relation to what I've just said, with like meal deliveries." And yeah, just sharing and being honest about it, being honest about the things that are tough and that you maybe didn't expect. And really raising the awareness that it's okay to ask for help, that it's okay to accept the help, because it is like a big thing. I find often birth and having a baby, it's everyone talks about it, such a natural thing. So we as women believe we just have figured it out. We know what to do. But actually, it's like it's not just birthing a baby; it's also birthing you. Like, I
Mm.
find I've changed so much since I've given birth to my first one. And I always want to say, change is not in a bad way. Like, when I look back, I'm so glad I did all of that. But very often when we say, "Oh, things will change, your life will change," everyone is like, "No, I don't want that."
Mm.
But it's actually, it can be in a really good way if you are prepared for it and if you accept it, and if you just go into it and say, okay, let's see what's going to happen. There are things that you can prepare for. Like, I think for me, the biggest thing that I would recommend is get prepared in terms of your food. And really not so much in terms of what you eat. Yes, it does have an impact, so don't eat just donuts and coffee, but it's really about the logistics. So that's also what I've seen first time around. I wasn't prepared for that. And suddenly we were home with a newborn and no one had time to cook. And we were like, well, we need to eat something. What are we doing? And in the end, we ended up ordering home pre-cooked meals. So they're all frozen and you just need to warm it up. And that's how we survived for the first 4 weeks.
Mm.
Second time around, I already knew that. So I pre-ordered everything. I stacked up my freezer and I didn't have to worry about it. And we needed it. Like, food is such an important factor in your postpartum stage, because you as a mom, you need it. You need it for your milk. You also need it for healing. You need it for your recovery. And because we're already sleep deprived, if we don't have enough fuel in our body, how should we function? Where should the energy come from? And so for me, like, food is really important. Make sure you've got a plan. And it's not just because that's what I did first time around. My plan was my husband will do it. But
Mm.
that didn't work, because first time around, I found it very overwhelming for both of us. So
Yeah.
actually, we both had to figure out what we're going to do with this tiny human. But there wasn't time. There wasn't time for cooking. There wasn't time for preparing. There wasn't time for grocery shopping. And this time around, I made it very clearly that he's in charge of grocery shopping. You're doing it once a week. So you go out once a week for 1 hour, you just get everything that is on the list, you come back, everything is done. And in terms of cooking, we had all the pre-cooked meals in our freezer. Since we had the help from the mother-in-law, sometimes he was able to cook, but we both knew that he doesn't have to. There was something in the fridge, there was enough food. And the other thing that I would like to mention is I often found in these very early weeks, you're actually not hungry. I think as a mom, you're focusing on so many other things that you feel like, oh, actually, I don't need anything, I'm not hungry, but you do need to eat. I
Mhm.
know there are so many other priorities, and you would always look after your baby first, 100%, but you need to look after yourself as well. And if you don't fuel yourself, you will run out of energy and fuel very, very quickly. And that will have an impact on how you experience your postpartum stage.
Yeah. And it can easily kind of compound, can't it? So things, we might feel like, oh, we're okay, but it's the first
Yeah,
week. And then we move second week, third week, and it really does accumulate that we are hungry, we are depleted, we
yeah,
are overtired, we are cranky, we are stressed. It's
yeah,
affecting our relationship, it's affecting, how we feel about ourselves and our
yeah,
body. It just, yeah, really is worth putting some time and thought into that so that we can avoid it's already hard enough.
yeah.
It's hard enough that we're getting very little sleep, in a job that we really have no, training for.
No, no, you're kind of being thrown in the water. I need to figure out how to swim. And yeah, just make sure that this one thing gets off your plate. You don't have to worry about it, and it's being taken care of.
Yeah, and also it's wonderful these days that more partners are being able to take a little bit more time off
Yes.
work and extend it, but that's as I'm sure you'll agree, that's not enough. Bec
No.
It's not enough because we also don't wanna be, absolutely overloading our partners with every single task in the home. We wanna be able to feel their presence and
Yeah.
get their hugs and, allow them to bond as well with the baby, or in your case, you've got an older child too, so, you can't forget that part. So having a partner home for maybe a month or whatever, or having family close by doesn't mean that you're going to have all your needs met.
No. No,
Mm.
that's very true. And what I've said, even though we had the mother-in-law, and so many people said to me, "Oh, so she's going to cook." And I was like, "No, no, no, that's not the way we do it. The cooking and the food, I've sorted that out in a very different way, because she's there to look after my toddler, so he really feels that he still gets all the attention that he needs. And then my husband, he's kind of the one who needs to juggle, like, where I need him. Do I need him with the baby? Do I need him with the toddler? Do I need him? And
Yeah,
also exactly what you've said, give him the time to bond with the baby. So yeah, even though you think you've got a lot of people around there, there's still other things that you can actually outsource. And then you can really focus on the things that the most important things, which is, yeah, getting to know your little baby, making sure you're arranging the new routine. And because it is going to be a different style now in the house, that suddenly there's a new one and there's a toddler, and you need to see how the toddler reacts. And yeah, how all of that falls into places.
yeah, yeah. So many different dynamics.
Yeah.
So you've said like a lot of beautiful points. If we just make it a bit more succinct, what would be your three top tips out of those things that you've said?
So number one is definitely for me breastfeeding. Invest in time, and if it needs to be money, to get your breastfeeding journey working. If breastfeeding is the way that you choose to do it. For me, it was asking from the beginning the midwives to help me, and along the track, I would have known that there is a lactation consultant that I could reach out to, and really don't feel like that like as soon as you feel pain, don't think that that's the way how it needs to be.
Mm.
Ask. Just ask and ask again. And if it's the 5th time, the 10th time, and you don't feel comfortable in doing it yet alone, just ask again. And I've talked to many other moms, and pretty much everyone shared that breastfeeding in the beginning with the first one was really challenging. Second time around, yes, normally it goes a little bit quicker, but there were still questions. So just go and ask and get the support that you need. Second point, I would say invest in yourself. And what I mean by that is I really love to understand why things happen. So I would really say invest into understanding what changes are coming in terms of your own body, but also how the new life will fall into places. So talk to other moms, really understand why your body changes need to happen. I really felt like once I understood why my hips are widening, why my breasts are getting so much bigger, why my pelvic floor is not that strong anymore, I suddenly had so much more grace for my body and accepting it and making the whole journey so much easier and just being so much more patient because I really feel that's what we need, especially in your postpartum stage. Um, the other thing when I say invest in yourself is first time around because we had to move, I really didn't feel safe and comfortable at home. So make sure you create, like I call it, a safe space to land. And that was one priority for me when we knew that we were pregnant with the second one. Again, I was like, I need to make sure that wherever we are living, I'm feeling safe, I'm feeling comfortable. It's a warm space for the whole family where we four can really land and figure out life as a family of four. Um, and the third one is, I think I have to mention that because I'm an exercise specialist. So because I'm working with pre and postnatal women, I find having a plan for returning to exercise really, really makes a difference. Because as we know, as I've already mentioned, your body will change. You can do as much as you want, your body will change, and it's good. That's what needs to happen. Otherwise, you can't grow a human, and otherwise, you can't give birth to a baby. So these changes, they're all good and normal, and they need to happen. But knowing what you will do once the baby is born, I find that is really relieving and takes a lot of stress and makes it so much easier to accept these changes because you then have a plan, okay, this is the time when I will start returning the exercise. This is what I have to do. I'm not going to worry about it right now. I can really enjoy my pregnancy. I will see how birth flows. And then after 6 weeks postpartum, and I feel ready for coming back into exercising, then I can get started with it. So these are the 3 things that are the most important for me.
Yeah, really valuable tips there. Yeah, and I think it's, when we're pregnant, we sort of celebrate and honor our body, don't we? In a lot of,
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people do anyway. There's a lot of fuss made around the bump and, how you're growing and how beautiful it is and how you're carrying. But then it's sort of when you have the baby, that sort of conversation is discarded a lot, isn't it? Like the
yeah,
mother's completed her work, she's the baby's here, which is the most important thing, and everyone wants to then focus on the baby. And often the mother is left with those feelings of what's just happened to my
yeah,
body. It
yeah,
looks very different now, and I don't know whether I'm comfortable with it.
yeah,
So, yeah, it's a good time to put some mindset into these changes and why they're happening. It's not how you look, it's what you've achieved and how you feel
yeah,
within. And it's getting to know yourself all over
yeah,
again, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, as a pre and postnatal fitness coach, how would you, what would you say to a woman that's thinking of getting back into exercise? How would she ease back into that?
Yeah. So because I'm working in this industry and because I'm going through it second time around, I would say there are a few steps that you can put into place. So I would say it already starts at birth because after birth, you know how birth went, and depending if it's a vaginal birth, a cesarean birth, your recovery will be a little bit different. So at birth, I would recommend ask if you've got any tearing, because it really makes a difference to understand what tearing you have, to then set expectations how quickly you can recover and what types of exercises you need. So just quickly, there are 4 different degrees of tearing, and it makes a difference on how quickly you will recover. So then the second step I would say is your 6 weeks checkup. And at this point, I highly recommend not just seeing your obstetrician. They often just check that everything is healing fine, that your stitches have healed. But if you see a pelvic floor physio, so a women's health physio who is specialized in seeing postpartum women, it really makes a difference on understanding your body even more. So going through how your pelvic floor is doing, going through how your core is doing, and really understanding where you are. So that will be my second point. From then on, normally we say if you got your clearance checkup, so if the pelvic floor physio and the obstetrician say, yes, everything has healed perfectly, you can now go back into exercising. It's really about starting slowly. So I would say if we look at intensity wise, from 6 weeks onwards to 4 months, I would say slowly increase intensity. So that means go back into your strength training, but work with body weight only. You don't need to use a lot of weights yet. Your main focus should really be work on your core and work on your pelvic floor exercises. This is the most important part, because they are building the foundation on everything else. You need to have a strong core to keep your stability, to help with relieving your pain, like your back pain. You need a strong pelvic floor pretty much for everything. You just want that to get working again, because you don't want to be leaking, you don't want to feel uncomfortable. And from the 4-month point, normally around 4 months to 6 months, within this window, once your core has pretty much healed, you can then look into getting back into more high intensity exercises. And look, these are just rough guidelines. So if you're not there yet at 4 months, that's totally fine. Just keep working on your overall strength, increase body weight with a little bit of weight, a little bit, but keep focusing on your core and pelvic floor. And then I would say from the 6-month mark on to pretty much about 12 months, that's when you can really look into high intensity exercises again. So when I say high intensity, what I mean is running, jumping. And if you think about the movement, what you're doing, if you're jumping up and down, and pretty much all the pressure of your body weight is landing on your pelvic floor. And that's why I say for the first 4 to 6 months, really focus on getting that strong again. And then you can build on increasing the intensity and the strength of the exercises that you're doing. If you look, because I get this question quite often, like how much time should I invest in it? If you would look in time wise, I would say up to your 4 to 6 month mark, really do your pelvic floor and core exercises daily. And I've recorded it yesterday because I wanted to know how much time it takes me. It took me like 5.5 minutes. It is not long if you know exactly what you need to do. These are my 3 pelvic floor exercises, my 3 core exercises. I do them on the living room floor. I don't even get changed, because they are like easy exercises, but they're so helpful and they're so important. And then, so once you've had your clearance checkup, I would say, so I'm right there yet. I just had my clearance checkup and I'm getting back into exercising. My goal is to train 3 times a week for 30 minutes, plus the daily core and pelvic floor exercises. But if that's too much for you at the moment, just start with once a week for 15 minutes. It's really about getting your body moving again, and then slowly increasing the intensity, because it's a lot. Yes, you need to find the time when you will do it, when baby is asleep, and how to figure it out. And it's a new kind of feeling how your body feels, because it does feel differently. And then slowly increase the intensity. And I'm very, very sure that you want to increase the time spent, because you will get such a good feedback from the 15 minutes that you've just invested in yourself. It feels good. You will feel stronger, that you say, oh, actually, next time I will try 20 minutes. And then slowly start building it up. So normally I say around 6 months, if you can get to a routine of training 3 times a week for 30 to 45 minutes, that's a really, really great way of increasing your intensity, increasing the time, and doing it slowly so that the body can still heal, but you're already building your strength and really doing it sustainably, because you don't want to go super hard and say, oh, I'm going to train 4 times a week, and then after 2 weeks you're stopping because you're so overwhelmed and you
Mm.
just can't do it.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And obviously there'd be different levels of fitness. And if a woman isn't used to exercise or isn't, she's not a seasoned exerciser, she would take it a lot slower.
Exactly,
Yeah, it's
exactly,
very
and that's
individual.
yes, and that's
Mm,
what I always say, it's your journey. Never compare yourself to anyone else. It's your journey. You need to start listening to your body, and your body is telling you. Your body will tell you if something is too much. You will feel it,
yeah.
you will see it, and then just scale back and do what you can. And that's why I say if 3 times a week is too much, just start with once.
Mm,
Once a week for 15 minutes. You will find the time, invest in yourself, and you will get so much out of it.
yeah. So early days, like the first 6 weeks, are we doing some pelvic floor exercise?
You can, you don't have to. So I would say 0 to 6 weeks is really for resting. I
Mm,
know something really hard for me because I'm so used to exercising and moving my body every day, but 0 to 6 weeks really rest, heal, stay in your bed, walk around the house a little bit. So this time around, I took that really seriously. And really, for the first 3 weeks, I didn't move. Yeah, I moved around a little bit in the house, but most of the time, I just wanted to stay in bed or on the couch. And then at 3 weeks to 6 weeks, if you feel ready for it, you can start walking, but like really gentle and slow. So I think the first time I walked, I probably walked about 10 minutes. Um, and that was enough. I could feel like, oh yeah, my body's getting exhausted again. And then just listen to your body. So next time maybe it was 15 minutes and then do that for a week. And then you can increase it. But I would say resting, a little bit of walking, and if you feel up to it, from about 4 weeks, you can start with very gentle pelvic floor exercises. So one exercise that I always like to do is just pelvic tilting. So forward, backward. You can do that in the bed. And then followed by some squeezes. So you just think about holding wind and wave and see if you can hold it for 3 to 5 seconds. And you can do that in the bed when you go just before you go to bed and you go to sleep, and just integrate it in your day if you want to and if you feel ready for it.
great. Yeah, I'm glad you've raised that because some women are, desperate to get back into exercise, but just understanding that that's actually not going to probably be good for you long term.
No,
So honoring that space, it's not a long, like even if it's a month, it's not a long time in the grand
no,
scheme of things, and you don't get that back again.
no.
That's it.
No, and thanks for saying that, because I was once this woman who wanted to rush back into it, and I now looking back, I think I did that with my first one.
Mm,
Um, Second time around, I was like, no, I'm just not going to do it, and I think it's already paying off. Like when I had my clearance checkup, the numbers that I had from my pelvic floor and my core, they are already better than with my first one.
mm,
Even though with the first one, I started rushing back into it about 3 to 4 weeks. While this one, I didn't do anything for 3 weeks. Then for 3 to 5 weeks, I did a little bit of walking. And in the last week, I started with my pelvic floor exercises. And it's actually it's paying off if you're resting more in the beginning, because the body has more time to really heal and get strong again. That once you get to the 6 weeks marks, you will be stronger than if you rush back too early on.
yeah, good point. And just seeing that women's health physio, the pelvic floor specialist, I think is so important so that we know that we're doing the exercise correctly, we're utilizing the right muscles. And then, of course, that will set us up for a lot more results in what we're
Yes.
trying to achieve. Yeah,
Yes, and what I really like about the pelvic floor physio, it's also giving you a really nice starting point, because you can't measure your progress if you don't know where you've started. And
true.
so having that right from the beginning, knowing exactly where you are in terms of like your ab separation, and having a number attached to it where you're like, okay, that's where I am at the moment, and that's where I want to get to. So I can give you a quick example. So at the moment for me, the ab separation, so that's the gap between the right and the left side of the six pack muscles, is about 1.5 centimeters, and we want to get that down to under 1 centimeter. And I just really like to work with numbers, because I'm like, cool, that's where I am. I know where I want to get to. And then every time I see her, I will see the progress that I'm doing. And it's just motivating that I know I'm doing the right exercises, it's working, I'm making the progress. And the obstetrician, they're not putting so much focus on that, and they're also not really going through any exercises with you. So that's why I just really recommend every woman out there to see a pelvic floor physio
Mm.
at the beginning.
It so should be part of a government scheme.
It should.
It's
Yeah.
just yeah, definitely, but that's another story. So, I'd love to hear, Elke, how has motherhood changed you?
Oh, that's a big question.
Yes. What
Um,
comes to mind initially?
I would say like the first few words that are coming to my mind is a lot. They have like motherhood has really changed me. And if I would think back about how I was living my life like 4 years ago, where I didn't have kids compared to now, it is very different.
Mm,
And I would say the biggest thing that has changed for me is like I started to look after myself. Like for a really long time, I would say my priority was always my career. So I've not always been in this field. I've not always been in fitness, even though it was always my biggest interest. But I'm coming from the corporate world, so I was in finance, and for a very long time, it was really just about being successful in my career and getting one like one point after the other, one other exam done after the other, and just like climbing up the ladder without really looking after myself and asking myself if that makes me happy. And then I got to a stage where I had a little bit of a like rough personal time, where I actually stopped and I was like, is that what I really want to do? And is that how I want to live my life? And that was around the point where we wanted to get pregnant. And that's pretty much where it all changed. Like as soon as I was pregnant, I then decided to no longer pursue my career in finance. Like I decided to do it part-time and go into pre and postnatal coaching. And from then on, it just kept changing me. Like I really learned to listen to my body, to understand my body a lot more. So that's what I'm coming back to these changes that you're going through pregnancy and birth, and then also postpartum, because it just doesn't stop at birth. It continues, and you're constantly growing and developing. And yeah, I would say that's the biggest part. And also what I've said before, like change is not negative.
mm.
Change can be really positive, and I'm so glad that I did all of that, that I finally learned to listen to myself and really speak up if I need something, and not feel ashamed about it, not feel guilty about it if I need help. That's totally fine. So yeah, I would say that's, and also like I would describe it as the biggest milestone that I've ever accomplished. Like if you just think about it, what it means to be pregnant and to grow this human without even telling your body what to do, and then like going through birth, that's just the most, for me, it was the most magical and challenging and intense experience that I ever had. And I'm so glad I did it. I'm so glad that I got the possibility to do it. And yeah, it's really interesting to see for me like how my life was 4 years ago compared to what it is now.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah, it's such a transformative time, isn't it? And as women, we often say we've lost ourselves in
Mm,
motherhood. And yes, we have it to some extent because we are a brand new person.
yeah,
But it's not, as you said, a bad thing. It might feel a bit uncomfortable. It might feel a bit, unsettling, but it's an opportunity. It really is an opportunity to decide who we are, who we want to be, what we
yeah.
value, what our priorities are. So, from that perspective, it's such an upgrade.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would add to that because I hear that so often, like I've lost myself, and I definitely have that too. Like going through this first 6 weeks with my first son, I think I was in this phase where I was like, oh my God, what is going on? But I would now turn it around and I say, use it as a time to find
Mm,
yourself maybe again, or like truly find yourself. Like what I did through my both postpartum stages and then also the pregnancy with my second son again, all the work around like getting to know myself, really finding out what I want, what makes me happy, what do I need in my life. I don't know if I would have done it without being pregnant. Probably not, because there were so many other things that I thought are so much more important, but
yeah.
actually they are not. And I think, yeah, when you become pregnant, like priorities shift. And even though maybe you don't plan for it, because I never thought that I would be this type of woman who suddenly starts experiencing what I want in life, I really did. It's just like as soon as you know that you are carrying someone else and you are responsible for growing someone else, priorities just shift. and suddenly you start taking care of yourself. And I'm just really glad that I'm able to do it. And looking back, yeah, as I said, change doesn't have to be negative. It can be a really positive, transformative experience.
And like any life transition, particularly the ones that are milestones in our growth and development, there is a lot of plasticity available to us in our brains. And I would love mothers to know that is in matrescence or motherhood,
Yeah.
it's you have more opportunity to rewire your brain than you do in adolescence. So
Yes.
really take advantage of that.
Yes. Yeah.
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 So I really like that, flipping it around, and instead of seeing it, this scary change that you have to go through, is flip it around and see it positive. Like, be
Yeah.
excited about it. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you said, finding yourself rather than losing yourself.
Yeah.
And we continue to do that through our motherhood.
Oh,
It's
yes.
just in that early postpartum phase. So it is a little daunting, but it is so exciting
Yeah.
because over and over and over again we get to really choose the way we want to live, and the way we want to um, just carry ourselves.
Yeah.
Yep. And how we feel within ourselves. So, yeah, amazing. I've loved this conversation. So, tell us how we can find you, whether you have any, I know you're in not, working right now, it's very early days, but what will you be doing and what will you offer to mothers pre and postpartum?
Yes, thank you so much. So the best way to connect with me is on Instagram. So if you search for Power Body for Life, you will find me. And in terms of what my plan is after this early postpartum stage, so I will return to work around 3 months. So that will be early October, where I'm going to start taking clients again. And so what I'm offering is one-on-one coaching. So that's one part. The other part that I'm currently building and looking into launching either later this year or early next year is a membership, so a group coaching program. And the other thing that I'm doing is teaching Pilates classes. At the moment, I'm doing them in person, but I'm thinking of also switching them and doing them online. So there are 3 different options that you can work with me. And yeah, I will, like, for this year, I will slowly start building them up again, just because I also want to give myself to enjoy this time with my little one. But yeah, early October, if you follow me on Instagram, you will get all the updates once I'm out there and taking clients again.
Right. Remember to take it slowly though. Ease
Yeah.
yourself back into it.
Yes, exactly. I need to listen to my own advice.
Yeah. But that sounds great. I'll include all that information in the show notes,
Thank you.
and thank you so much for this very authentic conversation and very real. And we can honestly say that because you're right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So it's been really refreshing. And I know that many mums will be listening and will relate and hopefully see themselves just a little bit differently after this.
Yeah, well, thank you so much again for the invitation. It was really great.
You're welcome. Okay. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that it offered something helpful to your own mothering experience. If you are a pregnant woman or know someone who is, head over to my website to receive your free copy of the postpartum checklist and contact list. And if you'd like to be better prepared for your postpartum, both practically and mentally, purchase the Peaceful Postpartum ebook, a 52-page interactive guide on what you need to know and what matters most in postpartum. And so that we can get these conversations out to more mothers, I'd be grateful if you could like, share, and review this podcast, and we'll see you next time.